board, and thank you to everybody who participated today on the phone and in person. I am going to be supporting this bill today, and I would like to just share why. So there are several reasons. I've read this very closely, and I want to thank the committee consultant staff for having additional meetings with me to really understand all of the depths of this. I think that, first of all, it's important to note that what we're doing here is a vote to kick it to the voters. So we're saying the voters should have the right to decide on this. I think it is true that the voters were not aware of this part of Prop 19 when they were voting on it. So this vote is not for us to pass it, it's for us to let the voters decide, which I think is the right thing to do. I also will just note that in my district, Prop 19 did not pass, and it did not pass by a lot. So it was not actually even close. And also I've received more than 50 calls from my district residents about this bill urging my support, and I've received hundreds of calls. It's almost like a nonstop calling from a lot of people outside my district, also calling both my district office and my capital office about it. So I know that there's great resonance about this bill. I think it's also important to note that I think there are certain societal values that we want to encourage, and one of them is to save and to invest and to have the social safety net of the family be primary when possible. So to have intergenerational wealth be built and businesses be started and parents being interested in structuring things so that they can hand it down to their children or help their children come up and access opportunity and prosperity, and ideally their grandchildren. I see that as a really important value. And so when we set up the tax structure so that properties and businesses become unaffordable because of the taxation, we're basically incentivizing in subtle ways liquidating or not investing before a certain generation dies. And I don't see that as being a value that we're trying to promote. I also think that it's really important that we allow families to have flexibility. So if parents die and somebody inherits their parents' home, but they're not living in that city, they can't move into it within 1 year. They're not able to uproot their life that way. Having them rent out the home and have it be something that's flexible for their family, where we had testimony about property that's been in a family for multiple generations, and there are family weddings and family events there, and I think the ability to have flexibility within a family structure about how to make it work for that family is also really important. And I also just want to mention some of the reasons that Prop 19 passed. I think one of the things that was really important for me in understanding this topic really well is that, first of all, so far it was supposed to generate more revenue that was going to help us fight fires. So far, there actually is no additional state revenue. And it says here at the end of the committee consultant report that the DOF stated that local property tax revenue will increase as a result of Prop 19, but so would income tax deductions for local property taxes paid, resulting in no additional state revenue. So, on the one side it's due and on the other side it's deducted, and so that results in no additional revenue. So that's a major problem, and this is the headline of this paragraph is called dry well, a dry well, meaning there's no more water to get out of the well. So I think that there was some other testimony about some other part of this that resulted in some additional property tax revenue, but to the point of the revenue that's generated as part of what it was sold to the voters, which was to help us fight fires. That part is not currently actualized. Maybe it will change, but at the moment, this is what the data is showing us. So the other thing I just want to mention is that while this property tax exclusion applies to, it says between 60,000 and 80,000 properties statewide, and the idea was to unlock this inventory, to have more homes that are on the market to be sold. And something that's not mentioned but is really important to me is that we are unlocking the inventory through the other parts of Prop 19 that would not be repealed. Because what Prop 19 does is it creates these new categories of people who can transfer properties more easily. So it allows transfer properties more easily and have a lower property tax they pay. And it's a hybrid rate, but it's lower property tax than they would pay at fair market value. So the new categories of people are the disabled taxpayers, people over age 55, victims of wildfire or other natural disasters. So those, what Prop 19 did is it said that somebody who owns that property and is in one of these categories can transfer to any county in the state and can transfer for properties that are more expensive. So if those categories of people before might have been disincentivized to move because of their property tax, their lower property tax rate, now they can have this hybrid lower rate that results in them being able to buy a property that's worth $1 million, but not pay property taxes on the $1 million property, pay it at a rate that's lower than that. So it does unlock housing inventory already, and this part is not up for repeal. So I think that there is a value that's happening there, and you just think about, I think about the reality of income inequality in our state and families that have invested in properties and we want to be able to create opportunities and not have only the wealthy own properties. So when a home is already over $700,000 and businesses cost more than that, who is able to afford to buy a house? And it's already under 20% of our state who, according to their income, can afford to buy a house. So there are, I do believe that, and it's not stated in this report, but I do believe that there are large numbers of these properties that are middle and lower class people who are inheriting a property, and that's the only way they're actually able to own a home. And so if they rent it out for a period, or they have a sibling transfer, or they figure out the flexibility in their family, I think that's okay. And it allows, for us to continue to have this middle class that has the access into home ownership, which is the greatest wealth builder that we have in our state. So, this is obviously a very complicated topic. I know it was a brokered deal when Prop 19 went on the ballot, and there are benefits that came out of Prop 19, and those are being preserved. This is saying for a small section, do we want to ask the voters if they want to reevaluate whether that was the decision they wanted to make, and do they want to have this intergenerational property tax exclusion applied again? And I think that it makes sense to allow the voters to answer that question for themselves. So with that, those are the reasons that I'll be supporting it today. Thank you.
Senator Wiener.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I want to thank everyone who came out today. I know